Thanksgiving, a day for family, gratitude, and for Vincent, a moment of complete humiliation. The evening had started off fine. The turkey was tender, the wine was flowing freely, and Vincent was engaged in a lively football conversation with his brother-in-law. He should have known it was too peaceful to last. Then, it happened. "Come on, you guys should be thankful," Jessica, his wife, declared with a smug grin plastered on her face. "At least you have something exciting happening. Can't say the same about what goes on in our bedroom." The room fell silent. A tense, painful silence. Then, a few hesitant chuckles. Some of the guests focused intently on their mashed potatoes as though they were reading a novel. Others nervously took long sips of wine. Vincent, however, sat frozen, blinking in disbelief. Was everyone hearing this? Was anyone else noticing how his wife had just kicked his dignity into the Thanksgiving stuffing? He could have said something. He should have said something. But what was the point? Responding would only make the situation worse. Instead, he took a deliberate sip of his drink, feigning indifference as if her words had bounced off him. But inside, everything was changing. This wasn't just a careless comment tossed out in the middle of a conversation. This was planned. And worst of all, it wasn't the first time. Jessica had been making these jabs at him for years, always in front of an audience, friends, family, coworkers. And Vincent, the ever-patient husband, had let it slide. Every single time. But not this time. The dinner continued. Plates were cleared. Jessica carried on like nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just destroyed his pride like a ruthless gladiator tearing down his opponent in front of a crowd. Vincent helped with the cleanup, moving in a daze, his mind replaying the scene over and over again. After the last guest left and the front door clicked shut, the house fell into a strange silence. Standing at the sink, rinsing a plate, Vincent waited for Jessica to say something. Anything. An apology. A half-hearted joke. Even just an awkward acknowledgement of what she'd done. But no. She hummed. She picked up glasses from the counter like she hadn't just humiliated her husband on the biggest family holiday of the year. Vincent exhaled, drying his hands slowly, his patience thinning. Finally, he broke the silence. "So, that little joke at dinner. Was that really necessary?" Jessica barely looked up. "Oh, come on. Don't be so sensitive. It was just a joke." "A joke. Right." He nodded slowly. "Just a joke. And humiliating me in front of everyone is funny to you." Jessica scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Please." No one cared. Vincent's jaw tightened. Oh, he cared. Deeply. Vincent cared. A lot. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to do something about it. He wasn't a man prone to losing his temper easily. No. He was the type who let things slide, laughed off little jabs, and convinced himself it wasn't worth the confrontation. But that night, as he lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, something clicked. He was done being the punchline of Jessica's jokes. She had made a big mistake. Not just because she embarrassed him in front of everyone, but because she was so sure he wouldn't do anything about it. Well, she was about to learn the truth. The next morning, Vincent woke up earlier than usual. Not because he wanted to, but because the thought of lying next to her made him sick. The warmth that used to be there? Gone. The idea of even casually reaching for her? Repulsive. Jessica was still asleep, blissfully unaware that her husband was starting to care a lot less about her. He got dressed, grabbed his keys, and walked out the door without making coffee, checking emails, or following any of the routines that used to define his predictable, Jessica-approved life. Instead, he drove straight to the gym. To be fair, Vincent hadn't set foot in a gym in a long time. The membership card in his wallet was from a gym that closed 5 years ago. But that didn't matter. The point was, he was done being the guy she took for granted. The first few days were painful. His muscles screamed in protest, his lungs burned at the idea of cardio, and the regret from every unhealthy meal he'd ever eaten weighed him down. But he kept going. Because every set, every drop of sweat, wasn't just about getting in shape. It was about reclaiming something he had lost. And at home, Jessica started noticing. At first, she didn't say much, just shot him side-eye when he came home from the gym. Her gaze lingered longer than usual when he walked past her in a fitted shirt, a clear improvement from his usual oversized hoodies that screamed, "I give up." Then, one evening, she said it. "You've been going to the gym a lot lately," she commented, her tone far too light. Vincent twisted the cap off his water bottle and took a sip. "Yeah." She waited, expecting him to elaborate. When he didn't, she forced a small laugh. "What brought that on?" Vincent shrugged, leaning casually against the counter. Felt like it was time for a change. And the look on her face was priceless. For the first time in years, Jessica seemed uncertain, like she wasn't sure who this man was anymore. Good. Vincent didn't need her approval anymore, and that was what really unsettled her. He wasn't doing this for her, that much was clear. At first, Jessica tried to act like she didn't care. She shrugged off his gym visits, ignored the fact that he wasn't asking for her input on things, and kept scrolling through her phone as if nothing had changed. But Vincent noticed. He saw the way her eyes lingered on him when he came home from work. When his phone buzzed, she suddenly seemed more interested in what he was doing. When he walked past her, she didn't look at him like her husband. It was more of a, wait, since when did he start looking like that, glance. And Vincent? He didn't give her the satisfaction of acknowledging it. One evening, he was buttoning up his shirt, preparing to go out, a ritual that used to require her approval. Jessica leaned against the bedroom doorframe, arms crossed, her expression sharp. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice light, but too controlled. Vincent adjusted his watch without meeting her eyes. "Out." "With who?" Finally, he met her gaze through the mirror. "Some friends from work." She let out a short, humorless laugh, shaking her head. "You never used to go out like this." Vincent smirked. "Yeah, I guess I didn't." And that hit her hard. Her eyes narrowed. "Right. And I suppose now you're just making all these decisions on your own." Vincent raised an eyebrow. "Isn't that what adults do?" She scoffed, pushing off the doorframe. "A few months ago, you couldn't even pick a damn shirt without asking me if it looked good. And now suddenly you're just deciding to go out with your friends without my approval." Vincent turned to face her fully, his lips twitching into a smirk. "Wow. So I needed your approval to have a social life." Her mouth opened, then closed, like she was choking on her own words. "That's not what I—" But he was already walking past her, grabbing his keys off the dresser. "Don't wait up," he said over his shoulder before heading out the door. And Jessica? She just stood there, arms crossed tightly, realizing for the first time that she was no longer in control. Jessica was furious. She tried to hide it, but Vincent saw it. He saw how her jaw clenched whenever he left the house without asking for her permission. He noticed how she hovered when his phone buzzed, how she suddenly started strolling into the room whenever he was getting dressed. She didn't like this new version of him. Because for years, Jessica had been the center of his world. Everything Vincent did was filtered through her approval. If she didn't like a shirt, he changed it. If she didn't want him to go out, he stayed home. If she made a joke at his expense, he laughed it off. Not anymore. Now he came home from the gym looking better than he had in years. His clothes fit better, his posture was straighter, and his confidence was something Jessica couldn't ignore. And Jessica? She started to panic. It started with small things. She began texting him more during the day. "Hey, just checking in. What time will you be home?" Since when did she care? Then she started being unusually nice. One evening, Vincent came home to find the dinner table set, candles, real plates, a home-cooked meal. "Wow," he said, eyeing the setup. "Are we expecting guests?" Jessica forced a smile, and for the first time, Vincent realized things were never going to be the same. "I just thought it'd be nice to have dinner together. You know, like old times," Jessica said, her voice too sweet, her smile too wide. Vincent glanced at the perfectly plated steak, then at her overly bright expression. He knew exactly what she was doing, trying to reel him back in. Old Vincent might have melted at the effort, but the new Vincent just took a bite, nodded, and said, "This is nice." That was it. No grand speeches, no emotional gratitude for her effort. Just a neutral statement. And that bothered her. For the first time, he wasn't trying to win her approval. Later that night, Jessica tried again. She set the perfect trap. A nice dinner, candles, wine, and a rare affectionate touch. Classic, "let me reel my husband back in before he realizes he's better off without me" tactics. For a brief second, Vincent almost fell for it. It had been so long since she'd made an effort, since she'd wanted him, since she looked at him like something more than a convenient. But then she went for the kill. As they sat together on the couch, Jessica scooted closer, resting her hand on his knee. Her fingers trailed up his thigh, and her voice dropped low and smooth. "We should go upstairs," she murmured. Vincent blinked, completely stunned. Was she serious? After everything? After humiliating him at Thanksgiving? After years of treating him like an embarrassment? Now she wanted him? Now, she was pretending to be the loving wife. He let out a dry, humorless laugh and shook his head. "Wow," he muttered, rubbing his jaw. So suddenly, you want to sleep with me? What happened, Jessica? Did you forget what you said in front of our friends and family? Her expression faltered. Vincent, no, remind me, she said, her voice defensive. He cut her off, his voice sharp. What was it again? Oh yeah? Can't say the same for what happens in our bedroom. That's what you said, right? But now, suddenly, you want this useless guy. Jessica stiffened. Then, in an instant, her demeanor flipped. Her eyes darkened, her lips curling into that condescending smirk he had seen too many times. Please, she scoffed, don't act like I was lying. We both know I was just telling the truth. You were never exactly impressive, Vincent. And there it was, the real Jessica. Not the affectionate wife, not the woman pretending to care. This was the woman who had been chipping away at his self-worth for years. In that moment, the last shred of patience Vincent had for her disappeared. He exhaled, shaking his head, a smirk forming on his face. You know what, Jessica? You had your chance, and you blew it. He stood up, ready to walk away. But Jessica wasn't about to let him go so easily. She leapt to her feet, her face twisted in rage. In one fluid, unhinged motion, she grabbed the wine glass from the table and hurled it across the room. The glass shattered against the wall, red wine splattering like a crime scene. Vincent arched an eyebrow, unimpressed. Wow, mature. But Jessica wasn't done. Oh no. She stormed toward the dining table, grabbed the nearest plate, and smashed it against the wall. Are you happy now? She screamed. Vincent took a slow, amused breath, watching her like a scientist observing an animal in a cage. Jessica, he said calmly, I think you might be the one who's overreacting here. She grabbed another plate. Smash. You think you're so much better now, don't you? She shrieked. Going to the gym, dressing differently, acting all confident like that changes who you are, like that makes you a man. Vincent tilted his head, stuffing his hands into his pockets. Well, considering you're having a meltdown because I don't want to sleep with you, I'd say it's working pretty damn well. Her face turned crimson. She was seething now, but Vincent? He was done. Go ahead. Break all the plates, Jessica, he said casually. But that's not going to change the fact that I'm done playing your games. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the wreckage of her own tantrum. For the first time in years, she was the one left alone. And Vincent? He had never felt more in control. The sound of smashing plates echoed through the house as Vincent walked upstairs. But he didn't stop, didn't flinch, didn't turn around. He let her throw her tantrum. She could smash every dish they owned for all he cared. It wouldn't change a damn thing, because something had shifted inside him. Before, Jessica's rage would have meant something. It would have gotten to him. He would have apologized just to keep the peace. He would have tried to smooth things over, reassure her, make things feel normal again. But not this time. This time, Vincent was enjoying watching her lose her grip. As he walked upstairs, he could still hear Jessica pacing downstairs, muttering angrily, seething with frustration. Good. Let her sit in it. Let her feel what it was like to be powerless. Vincent calmly removed his watch, placed it on the dresser, and started getting ready for bed like it was just another night. But of course, he heard her stomping up the stairs. A few seconds later, Jessica stormed into the room like a hurricane in designer sweatpants. You're just going to walk away? She snapped. Vincent sighed, unbuttoning his shirt without a care in the world. Yep. She scoffed. Are you serious right now? Vincent looked at her, completely unbothered. Jessica, you just threw a plate at the wall because I wouldn't sleep with you. Yeah, I'd say I'm serious. Her nostrils flared. I threw a plate because you're being a self-absorbed, arrogant ass. Vincent smirked. This was getting interesting. Arrogant, he repeated. Huh, that's funny, because for years I was just a boring, predictable, right? But now that I actually have some confidence, suddenly I'm arrogant. Jessica folded her arms. You're acting like you're some big shot now, like you're too good for me. Vincent laughed under his breath. Too good for you. He shook his head. That's rich. Maybe I finally just realized my worth. And oh, that hit her where it hurt. Jessica had spent years making sure Vincent never realized his own worth. She had chipped away at his confidence, made him second-guess himself, and made him feel lucky to be with her. And now? Now he wasn't begging for her attention. Now he wasn't chasing her approval. Now he was the one walking away. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her hands curled into fists. She knew she was losing him, but instead of admitting it, instead of apologizing, She did what she always did. She tried to flip the script. You know what? She sneered. Fine, walk away, but don't come crawling back to me when you realize no one else wants you. Vincent tilted his head, chuckling. Ah, the classic last-ditch insult. Yeah, he said, grabbing a pillow from the bed. I'll take my chances. And with that, he turned, walked past her, and for the first time, he went to sleep on the couch, not because she kicked him out, not because he felt guilty, but because he didn't want to be anywhere near her anymore. And that's when Jessica realized she had already lost him. Jessica didn't sleep that night. Vincent could hear her moving around upstairs, pacing, opening and closing drawers with just a little too much force, probably waiting for him to come crawling back. But he didn't. He stretched out on the couch, arms behind his head, staring at the ceiling with the kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. By morning, the house was too quiet. No forced small talk, no passive-aggressive remarks, no fake morning kisses just for show. When he finally got up, showered, and got dressed, Jessica was already sitting at the kitchen table, her untouched coffee in front of her, eyes glued to her phone, scrolling furiously. Oh yeah, she was pissed. Good morning, he said casually, grabbing a mug. No response. Ah, the silent treatment. One of her classic moves. He almost laughed. It was adorable that she thought that would work on him now. Jessica finally spoke, but she didn't look up from her phone. So what's the plan? You gonna keep sulking on the couch forever? Vincent took a sip of his coffee, unfazed. Not sulking. Just making different choices. Now she looked up, her eyes sharp. Oh, right. New Vincent, the guy who suddenly has a backbone. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. So what now? You gonna go run off and have a midlife crisis, buy a motorcycle, get a younger girlfriend? Vincent smirked. Funny, I don't recall saying I needed anyone to feel good about myself. Jessica scoffed. Please. You think you're some kind of prize now, just because you go to the gym and put on a fitted shirt? He shrugged. Hey, seems like it's bothering you more than me. Her jaw clenched. She hated this. Hated that she wasn't in control anymore. Well, enjoy your little ego trip while it lasts, she snapped. Because at the end of the day, you're still just. She stopped herself, taking a slow breath and forcing a tight smile. You know what? Never mind. Vincent chuckled. Oh, he knew exactly what she wanted to say. He was still just the same loser she had always looked down on. Too bad for her. He didn't believe that anymore. He set his coffee down, meeting her gaze. You know, Jessica, he started, his voice steady, for years, you made me feel like I needed to work for your approval, like I had to prove something to you just to be worth your time. He let the words settle, watching her lips press together, her eyes flicker with frustration. But here's the thing. He leaned in slightly, his words deliberate. I don't need your validation anymore. And that scares the hell out of you. Her expression flickered just for a second. Then she rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. Vincent smiled. No, I'm just done. And for the first time since their marriage started falling apart, Jessica didn't have a response. Vincent could see it happening in real time, Jessica cracking. At first, she tried to play it cool, acting like she wasn't affected, rolling her eyes, tossing out sarcastic comments like she always did. But he knew better now. This time, he wasn't playing her game. And it felt good. That was just the mask Jessica wore to hide the fact that she was panicking. She could feel it, the shift, the loss of control, the realization that Vincent wasn't reacting the way he used to. And nothing terrified her more than the fact that she no longer had power over him. That night, after another tense, silent evening, Vincent grabbed his keys and started heading for the door. Where are you going? Jessica blurted out. Vincent didn't even hesitate. Out. She stood up from the couch, frustration written all over her face. Since when do you care? Vincent smirked, amused by her sudden concern. Oh, please, she snapped. You think I don't see what's going on? You start dressing better, spending more time at the gym, suddenly having plans every other night. You think I'm stupid? Vincent turned, raising an eyebrow. No, I think you're realizing you don't get to control me anymore. And that was the final straw. Jessica snapped. You're such an idiot. Her face twisted in frustration. You think you've become this whole new person, that you're suddenly someone important? You're still just Vincent. The same boring, predictable guy you've always been. You'll never be anything more than that. Vincent just smiled. Oh, how predictable. He was completely unfazed. That's cute, Jessica. You're so desperate to make me feel small, aren't you? Because if I don't, you'll have to face the truth. You're the one who's scared. Her face turned red with anger. I'm not scared. Vincent tilted his head, his voice calm but cutting. Really? Then why are you acting like this? For the first time, Jessica looked lost. She had nothing left to say. The truth was staring her in the face. She had already lost him. Vincent sighed, shaking his head. Look, Jessica, I'm not going to fight with you. I just don't care enough anymore. And with that, he walked out the door, leaving her standing there, stunned, furious, and completely alone. Vincent didn't come home until late that night, not because he was doing anything reckless, but because he simply didn't care to rush back. For years, he had lived his life according to Jessica's schedule, bending over backward to avoid arguments, staying home when she wanted, going where she wanted, living in the world she dictated. But now? Now, he was reclaiming his own damn time. And Jessica hated it. When he finally stepped through the door, she was waiting, not in her usual "I'm better than you" stance, but sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the countertop like it held all the answers to her life's problems. The lights were dimmed. A half-full glass of wine sat next to her. And for the first time in a long time, she looked nervous. Vincent shut the door behind him, tossing his keys onto the counter. You're still up? She looked up, her expression unreadable. Yeah. She paused. I made dinner. Her voice was softer than usual. Vincent glanced at the untouched plate across from her. Oh, so this is the next move, he said, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed. First the insults, then the rage. And now you're trying to play the nostalgia card. She swallowed, forcing a smile. I just thought we should talk. Vincent exhaled, shaking his head. Jessica, you don't want to talk. You want to reset. You want to sweep everything under the rug so we can go back to me being the guy who puts up with your crap while you sit there pretending you've done nothing wrong. She flinched, her fingers tightening around the stem of her wine glass. That's not true. Really? Vincent challenged. Then let's talk. Let's actually talk. Let's talk about how you spent years tearing me down. How you humiliated me in front of our friends. How you made me feel like I wasn't good enough, even when I gave you everything. He stepped closer, his voice steady. Let's talk about why, after all that, you suddenly want to fix things now. Jessica's jaw tensed. She had no answer for that. Because they both knew the truth. She didn't suddenly care. She was just scared of what would happen when Vincent stopped caring about her. Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, to find some way to turn this around. But nothing came out. And in that moment, Vincent knew this was it. The power shift was complete. He wasn't the one begging. He wasn't the one scrambling to fix things. She was. And for once, he wasn't going to save her from the consequences of her own actions. Vincent exhaled slowly. I think we both know where this is headed. Jessica's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Vincent. No, he cut her off. You don't get to make this my fault. He gestured between them. This is because of you. You built this. And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving Jessica to face the reality that, for the first time, the game was over. You tore it down. And now you want to act like we can just glue it back together. Vincent shook his head. I'm done, Jessica. Her face crumpled, but Vincent didn't feel guilty. Not anymore. Because this wasn't his loss. It was hers. Jessica sat there, frozen. No more clever remarks. No more smug smirks. No more control. Vincent had finally said the words she had been trying so hard to ignore. I'm done. For years, she had chipped away at him, convinced he would always be there. Convinced he would always stay, no matter what she said or how she treated him. But now, as he stood there, calm and completely unfazed, it hit her. She had lost him. Completely. You're serious? She whispered, still unable to believe it. Vincent simply nodded. Yeah, I am. Silence. Then came desperation. Vincent, she tried again, her voice unsteady. Look, I know I messed up. I know I. She took a breath, forcing her usual confidence back into her tone. I mean, this is just a rough patch. Every marriage has. Jessica. His voice was gentle but final. This isn't a rough patch, he said. This is the end. She sucked in a sharp breath, blinking rapidly. You're really just walking away? He tilted his head. No, Jessica. You walked away a long time ago. I'm just finally catching up. And that was the truth. He had spent years holding on to something that was already broken. Years making excuses, convincing himself that maybe things would get better. That maybe he was the problem. But he wasn't. The problem was that Jessica had stopped loving him long before he stopped loving her. The difference? She thought she could treat him like garbage forever. She thought he'd never leave. But she was wrong. Vincent let out a slow breath and turned toward the door. I'll send over the paperwork. You can have the house. I don't need it. Jessica sat up straighter, her eyes flashing. Wait, just like that? You're just leaving me everything. Vincent smiled. Yeah, you always wanted control, Jessica. Now you have it. Enjoy it. And with that, he walked out. No yelling. No fights. No dramatic final speeches. Just quiet freedom. As he stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air, he realized something. He wasn't sad. He wasn't heartbroken. He wasn't even angry anymore. Because Jessica wasn't his problem anymore. For the first time in years, Vincent was finally putting himself first. And damn, did it feel good. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe to the channel.